Hello and welcome to the Two Gals and a Mic podcast. I'm your host, Sue Curver, and on this special Veterans Day edition, I'm sitting down with Army veteran turned interior designer, Lisa Vien. As a first generation American Chinese and the first to join the military, Lisa is sharing her incredible journey of adversity and resilience to create community and help others heal. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sue. Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to have you. And my listeners know that I always start by asking about origin stories. Now, your family's origin story is really quite remarkable. So, why don't we start by your telling us about your parents' journey fighting against pirates, diseases, through wars to eventually find their way to the United States where they started a family?
It's pretty interesting and jaw-dropping when, as a kid, listen to these stories. And as an adult, you actually put pieces together. And the journey that they gone through, both my parents had gone through two different wars separately and managed to find the resilience and motivation to continue to move on past the Khmer regime, the Vietnam War. The stuff that they told me is still very surreal, but knowing their experience, I can relate to my experience now as an adult. It seems like we're not knowingly survivors deep down inside and just pushing through and just fighting through the hardship. With hardships, you appreciate the greatness that you do get. It's just really empowering for my parents just to know that they push through just to have a family, to give me a better life and just have the opportunity to have freedom in America.
So, Lisa, how did your parents eventually find their way to the United States?
From leaving Vietnam, they spent about 100 days at sea. All they really told me is there were pirates attacking the ships. People are starving. There's no food or not enough food. People just dying. And eventually they made it to Malaysia, the Bidong Island, that is known to house maximum 4,000 Vietnamese refugees, but it ended up being 40,000. And from there, I believe they have somehow reached friends of a friend of a friend that's willing to sponsor our family over to America, while his other family members went to Germany and Australia. So they got split up. I don't know how long it was. I think maybe 6 months to 8 months before they left the island and was able to go to Virginia. And that's where I was born.
Like we said in the introduction, you're
Um,
first generation American Chinese. You just mentioned that your parents made their way through some incredible circumstances to finally land in Virginia. How has their origin story impacted you? Did it influence your decision to join the military?
No, their story was just surreal as a kid listening to it. And they don't really talk about it too much because it's almost like a negative story that they don't want to bring up in our culture. They just don't really open up about that type of stuff.
So, what did influence you? What made you make that decision to join the Army National Guard?
To really have structure, a different kind of structure besides my family, and to give back to the country that welcomed my parents and gave them the freedom that they never really had and the safety. Just the biggest thing is opportunity to have a life of their own without fear.
So, you said that you were looking for safety, for structure, for opportunity. And
Hmm.
so you joined the Army National Guard. And during your time in service, you were deployed twice and you actually spent time in a combat zone.
Yes.
What was that like for you? And how did these experiences shape you as a person, as a woman, and as a professional?
It was unexpected for sure, and it was scary, but at the same time, I think I put on my big girl's hat, and at 22, I just accepted that I'm going overseas and not being a National Guard doing stateside, protecting homeland. It did not scare me, actually. I felt very proud to go and serve and do my job over there. I had to grow up really fast. It actually helped me shape the person I am now, building confidence and making me realize what my parents give me a glimpse of what my parents may have gone through being in a combat zone. It made me reflect a lot. The Iraqis there, they could have been my parents. Different war, different time. But being overseas, it really helped me realize how precious life is. Not just life, but the smallest thing like ice cubes. And being able to come back home physically in one piece, it really, really opened up my eyes. A lot of things don't matter as long as you being good, being kind, and giving back wherever you can. I think if I had not gone overseas in combat zone, seeing what I saw and been through the experience, I don't think I would appreciate my life in America as much as I do now. Sometimes it's hard to put it in words. It's this feeling that you get being a soldier, being a veteran, being a combat veteran, having that experience and bringing that persona back at home and kind of transition into a civilian. But it has helped me throughout my adult life, knowing what I want to do, very focused, very determined, and really motivated actually to accept all challenges that life throws at me.
You mentioned transition, and I definitely want to talk about that piece here in just a minute. But before we do, Lisa, can you give us some context about what life was like for you overseas? Maybe paint the picture for our listeners who have not deployed to a combat zone.
I was a finance administrator. I dealt with the soldiers' pay, leave, all the paperwork for the commanders. First, we convoyed into Baghdad, and it was just sandy, very dusty. You see leftover tanks from the first Gulf War as you drive by. You don't really see anybody. It's almost felt like it's empty. It feels like abandoned. Where we stayed at was on Bayab, Baghdad International Airport. When we first got there, it was just 10 feet of weed everywhere, bombed up buildings. We didn't know who the people were on the other side of the retaining wall. It could be friendlies or it could be insurgents. We had no idea. Nothing was really ready. There was no chow hall. There was just the bombed out building that we stayed at. And definitely that there's no ice cubes. It was about 120 degrees. We just drank hot water. We showered using a 5 gallon camping bag up on the roof. Sometimes I feel like I was in like my mom's situation in Cambodia for some reason. We used what we could and make the best out of it. Water was scarce at the time. It was really safe for us to drink until the engineers came to build shower stalls, chow hall, and anything else we need. Definitely no AC, but life there was very different. You learn to adapt, especially as a woman. It's always 4 to 10 ratios between men and women. Thankfully, I was in headquarters. I was always with a mixed group. Headquarters bring in all the platoon sergeants, platoon leaders, commanders, first sergeants. So it was a good mix of female and male. But being the youngest female in headquarters was very daunting at the beginning. When you need to do the work, you just forget everything. You put on the boots and you just kick ass.
So here you are. You've put on your boots, you're kicking ass, and now it's time to return back to the United States. And you previously mentioned that you felt like this experience made you resilient and maybe in some ways fearless, and that it set you up to be ready for any challenge. But you've also said that returning to regular life really left you feeling lost and in some ways unsettled. Lisa, you did what a lot of us do. You throw yourself into things to feel a sense of accomplishment. Did you feel like this also allowed you to feel a sense of purpose?
I think so. I mean, you don't know it at the moment until you've gone through a couple years of different trials and errors. And I feel like what I've been through and what I brought back did give me a purpose to give back in a different way, give back to our other veterans, especially female veterans, and telling others that they're not alone. At one point, I felt alone. I didn't know what was going on. The typical stereotypical soldier or veteran coming back from overseas and just feeling isolated or feel that they should isolate themselves because nobody's going to understand their story or what they've been through. The purpose is not only just for me finding my own path and go for my dream job as an interior designer, but also channel a different way to give back to the veteran community that I never had.
Well, you just mentioned that you felt alone and sometimes maybe unsafe about talking about your journey or your time in the military because no one would understand. And I don't think that this is an uncommon scenario. In fact, I think a lot of people, a lot of veterans feel the same way. And what's so interesting, as you've said, is that then people tend to isolate instead of go out and find a community that does understand. What was the turning point for you when you finally allowed yourself to be vulnerable enough? And what happened as a result of that vulnerability?
My first time I realized is maybe about 9 or 10 years after coming home from deployment. I'm starting to feel different, act a little different, unusual behaviors that I've never seen myself express before. So I was a little concerned and decided to see if speaking to a psychiatrist, a therapist, would help me understand why I am the way I am because nobody else can tell me that. It has been 9 years since I've been back. I try to be gung ho and just pretend that I don't have PTSD, but I play the part where, oh, I have PTSD, but not really acknowledging what that really is and how it can affect you. And you have absolutely no idea when it can affect you. So when I reached that point, I was like, okay, I didn't build a veteran community at the time. I didn't know anybody. So the closest thing to that was the VA. I made an appointment and started talking to the therapist. As a therapist, they knew what to ask. So she asked the right questions to make me open up these different closed paths that I never knew I closed. So one thing led to another. It's almost like opening Pandora's box slowly, or a nesting Pandora's box one at a time. The more I went to see my therapist, the more I'm finding out a lot more about myself and questioning myself and just understanding a little bit of what I'm going through. It takes more than 100 sessions to realize the answer you've been looking for.
It's so interesting that you say that things started to bubble up and appear in your life literally almost a decade after being
Mhm.
back, because you said it wasn't until 8, 9 years later that you started to feel differently and that something started to shift. So, first of all, kudos for you. That takes a lot of courage to pick up the phone and to seek help. Were you surprised by the diagnosis? Were you surprised to find out that something that was almost a decade old was suddenly starting to impact the life that you had built for yourself?
It's almost like a yes and no answer. It's like, okay, you come back from a combat zone, you're supposed to have PTSD, but I just didn't know what it was. You just know the basics, or I just know the basics of it. And then when I was actually diagnosed with it, I was shocked at first. Then I accepted it. Like, okay, that's what I'm supposed to do, right? I'm supposed to have that. So I have it. It's a professional diagnosed and said, okay, you do have PTSD. I'm like, okay, so what's next? How do I get rid of this? What do I do? Sure enough, they gave me medication that I did not want, but I tried anyways because they're the experts. And that only lasted 2 weeks because I became a different person that I did not recognize. And I just started channeling my PTSD in a different way, more with outdoors than relying on medication.
There's a lot of studies that talk about using nature as a way to heal. And I certainly want to dive into that here in a few minutes because that is our connection is through fly fishing. So we will
Mhm.
certainly talk about fly fishing. But before we do that, I'm curious to know about the idea of shame and embarrassment and if that at all entered your narrative. Because I know that when I was diagnosed with PTSD, there was this whole shame spiral that I launched into, and that kept me from reaching out to other people. It kept me from wanting to find additional help because my reaction to that was there's no way that this can be for me. This is for everybody else, but not for me. And I was so embarrassed about it that I didn't want to be open and honest and vulnerable and talk to other people who would understand. Did you experience any of those same things as you were going through this or starting your journey?
Yes, I did. I was embarrassed, like, okay, I'm actually diagnosed with PTSD, like, this is real now. Before I was just saying, "Oh, okay, I have it, I have it," but now it's legit that I am diagnosed with it. I felt embarrassed, so none of my friends really know. They just know the fake version of, "Yes, I have PTSD," then that's it, but not, "I am diagnosed with there is something wrong. There is something I need to work on," and I never reached out, so the only person or people that I felt somewhat safe to talk to or be vulnerable to are therapists because I don't know them. I could just talk to them and never see them again, and that's it. And there's no judgment. I'm just a patient to them. I did not open up to anybody but a therapist at the time.
And I also want to drive home the point that as all of this is happening with you, you are doing things in your life in a very accomplished way. You're going to school, you're finishing school, you're stepping into professional roles. So you're not paralyzed by this. You're actually continuing to accomplish things that you set out to accomplish. So, my question is, and I don't know if you have the answer, but I would love your perspective. Why do we not normalize this conversation? There are so many people, veterans, non veterans, who are suffering, who have experienced trauma and who are working through trauma. Why does it end up in shame and embarrassment instead of a normalized conversation?
I think we paint this perfect picture. You're supposed to have this perfect life, go to school, get a great job, get married, the white picket house fence and whatnot, the cars or whatever. And we don't talk about the negatives. We always want to show people the good in us because if we show the negative or the bad part, it's like, I'm not good enough for you or him or her or whatever it is. And it's like all this story that you draft up in your head. It's just like how we're just brought up that you're supposed to be this good person, you're not supposed to do anything wrong, and nothing's supposed to be wrong with you. So I think the negative parts of people's lives, you don't want to share them because you just don't want to be judged.
Well, and also, Lisa, so you've had this entire experience overseas. You've been in this combat zone. You've come back to quote unquote real life back in the United States. You're trying to assimilate back again. And then you have additional complicating factors, right?
Yes.
Including domestic violence that
Hmm.
eventually caused you to, as you have told me, go into hibernation like a bear during winter. And the unfortunate thing is that statistics show that when people, especially veterans, are faced with so much adversity, some don't end up surviving. How did you find the courage and the tenacity to not only come out of hibernation, but to take control of your life?
I think it was because of a dog, actually. For the love of animals, hibernating, just staying inside my apartment, no real interactions at all besides cooking at home. So I had a friend that wanted to visit with his dog, and it was a really weird day, but I think it was meant to be. He left me with the dog, and I left the dog at my apartment to go to a VA appointment. And then my friend left, and I came home to the dog, and we have to go downstairs to go to the bathroom. His name is Enzo. He somehow became my temporary service dog in no sense. I would sacrifice myself for the animal. So I take him downstairs. I go outside and not hibernate. I have to go outside because the dog needs to go to the bathroom. So each day I got to make a time, like a schedule to go, okay, you need to go to the bathroom now. And it became a routine for me. I was like, oh, can I keep him for a couple more days? And, my friend's more than happy to like send him away so he doesn't have to take care of him. But he helped me for like, I don't know, 6 months, 8 months, where he stayed with me several weeks at a time, and he helped push me to go outside and walk around the block only because he needs to go to the bathroom. I put his needs before myself. From there on, I felt more comfortable being outside. It's okay. I mean, I still have, looking over my shoulders and loud noises, but the fact that I am outside, I am doing stuff humanly, but yet I have this beautiful animal here, just is not judging me, does not know what the heck I'm doing. And then from there, I was feeling more comfortable being outside, and I was like, okay, I want to go do stuff, but everybody's working, and who do I go with? And that's when I started looking up for veteran organizations that does outdoor activities. And one thing led to another, one organization led to another that helped me slowly build my veteran community, that people I can depend on, that I can actually talk about my story and be vulnerable around them with no judgment because they know exactly what I went through, because they went through the same things or similar things. And then we just build each other up one step at a time. And I just felt more comfortable to not live in fear. I'm fighting it because I'm not going to let that control my life, because I see the other side of it, a beautiful life, veteran friends, outdoor activities, and just being happy and not hibernate.
And I want to clarify what hibernation meant. So for you, it sounds like when you were hibernating or in that space, you were staying isolated and alone inside of your home, right? You weren't going outside. You weren't interacting with human beings aside from your VA appointments. You were not living regular, normal life, doing all the things that we do. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I was afraid to go outside because I was afraid to be seen by my ex. Not only that, because of the domestic violence has heightened my PTSD. Paranoia, hypervigilance, the nightmares, insomnia all came back at a higher level, which made me did not want to go outside and interact with anybody because I'm afraid I might lash out at somebody or be irritated on something so simple. I felt safe by myself in my apartment, doing my own thing and not be judged, and no criticism just because some people don't understand what I'm going through.
And here's little Enzo that's taking you outside and slowly taking you around the block and pushing you a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And now, Lisa, you're sitting down with me, and here you are sharing your incredible story. Why? Why now? And why is this so important?
Part of me has died, and I just kind of like left that behind. And at the same time, I'm ready to talk about it. I feel like I am healed in many ways, that I can talk about my story and to let others know that you're not alone. Because when I started opening up, other women says that happened to me too. Even just talking about it right now gives me chills. It just felt like this thing off my shoulder, like, oh my God, there's somebody else. And it was a total stranger that said that to me. And then it just kept happening. Another person, another stranger told me, yeah, I'm actually going through something similar to what you're going through right now. But it's just so liberating and free, I guess, to be able to connect with these other women out there that's going through similar situations, and you can help each other. It's like all these little baby steps. Whether you know it or not, life just feeds you these little pieces and you just take it in. Later on, you just realize, oh, that was supposed to be part of my journey to meet this person and talk about my journey. And then 2 days later, I meet another person that share the story also. it's time to share my story out in public and let other people know that they're not alone and they can find help if they really want to get help.
And here's the thing that you're talking about, Lisa. You never know when you are going to be a lifeline for someone. And you never know when you're sharing your story can be that make it or break it moment for somebody who's hibernating and struggling. And I want to just take another moment to really acknowledge how much strength and courage that it takes to be vulnerable and to open up and to do what you're doing. It's not easy, but it is so, so important. The first time that I heard your story, we were in Colorado and we were out at the river and we were fishing. We were fly fishing. And you've already mentioned that you, to turn the corner, looked into ways that you could heal through nature. Tell us a little bit more about that. Tell us how things like fly fishing and nature have helped you progress along your own journey.
I've always been an outdoor person, but because of the traumas that I've been through, somehow I forgot all about it. I was scared to go outside. I was scared to go outdoors and do all these fun activities I used to do. Because of these organizations that I participated in, helped guide me back into nature. But when you're with a bunch of veterans, you feel safe. So it's okay. It's this really, really awesome feeling going back into nature. It just feels so free and you're in your zone. You don't think about anything else. You're just focusing on that task, whether it's surfing, fly fishing, hiking, or whatever it is. And you're in this nature where in fly fishing, it's so different. I started with fly tying, this little tiny little thing. I'm like, I don't know, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no tools, have to borrow things from everybody. I just thought it was so meticulous and it's so much fun. And you're so focused on this tiny little hook and all these random feathers. You get the hang of it, you get the tools, the gears, and then you go home and you start doing it on your own. And I really, really enjoy it. It's like another therapeutic avenue just for fly tying. Then I got to build my own rod, which was awesome because I didn't know people build them. I just thought it was a machine. And it was just like really, really cool. What was amazing is actually taking my own rod, going on my very first fly fishing day trip with the group, and went on a float tube, and, I'm just casting. I have absolutely no idea. There's all these lines flying everywhere, these weeds, and then next thing you know, I did not know there was a fish on line because it was so small. I was gonna recast, and that largemouth bass hit me in my face, and that's how I caught my first fish on the rod I built the first time I went fly fishing. Literally, I was hooked. It was just amazing. The tranquility of it being on the water, and it was just serene, and especially depending on where you're at, like the background, the backdrop, it was, the Rocky Mountains. It was just really, really therapeutic for me. And the more I went, the more I get excited. Every time I'm like casting and listening to the instructions of all the experts, like what to do, you kind of find your way of how you fish, how you fly fish, what works for you. What works for others doesn't work for you, then figure out of the way or you learn from another instructor. And now I'm like really into it. I'm like Googling and YouTubing like different flies, trying to understand the scientific part of it, like when they eat, how they eat, when the fish decides to go take a siesta and then we go for our lunch breaks. Yeah, it was really, really good. I'm really glad I tapped into that world and meeting everybody like you, Sue. It's like a eye-opening world there. I feel like I'm myself. I feel like myself.
Which is amazing. And I've heard from a lot of women that they would love to do these things, but they're afraid. They're afraid to look silly or to be embarrassed, or they don't know how to do any or all of the above activities and they don't want to get out there and just look dumb. So, how did you overcome any of those barriers to entry? Besides the fact that you already said that you're fearless and you're open to any challenge.
I don't really care about what people think of how I look. When I saw the water the first time, like, oh, I'm getting in that. But I'm like, wait, I'm wearing waders. I'm protected. I'm just going to go in. I'm just going to have fun. That's the main thing, is to have fun and not care about what other people think of you at the time, because you're doing it for you. The point is that you're going out there doing it, and you're not doing it for other people. You're you. There's no other better version than what you are right now. So why not just do it? Do what you want.
I love that so much. So, another thing that you have done for yourself is followed and pursued your dream of becoming an interior designer. Tell us a little bit about this. How did you get started in this profession? And what does it look like for you today?
I've always been an artistic, crafty person. So I've always wanted to be an interior designer since I was a kid. But as you grow up and graduate high school, you follow where the job trend goes. So at the time, it was .com era, the Silicon Valley. So I tried going that route, being a nerd and do computer networking. Of course, 9/11 stopped me from finishing college, and I was deployed. After a year, came back. I'm like, all right, maybe I don't want to do computer networking. I am very curious about psychology, so I was going to take psychology classes and drafting. So that's kind of easing into interior designing. I've taken drafting classes in high school before, and I loved it. Sure enough, we were activated and was deployed after 3 weeks of starting college. So when I did come back, I said to myself, I came home all in one piece. I'm going to go pursue what I always wanted to do, because everybody expects you to be some kind of high status, an attorney, business person, a doctor, but that's nowhere close to what I want to do. And so I just said, you know what? There's nothing to lose. I'm just going to go put myself back to school and go for whatever I wanted to be since I was 5. Went to school full time until I got enough credits to transfer to Cal State Long Beach. I quit my job and went full time school. I was just very focused because I know exactly what I wanted to do. I was determined to get that degree and be an interior designer. I excelled. I ended up graduating, outstanding graduate of the year for Cal State College of the Arts. And with that, I landed my job. It was a job that wasn't expected. It was not an actual interior design job. It was more of a mixture of interior designing, architecture, and industrial design. But I think, like I said before, everything happens for a reason, and whatever's put in your path was meant to be in your path, because that journey of interior designing, learning architecture and industrial design helped me curate my design career, and being able to design for major companies. It was a proud moment for me that I accomplished something to show for, like, somebody liked my design, and that just led me my path to right now, where I can create my own schedule and freelance and actually pick the projects I want to do.
So, when you consider all that you have been through, all that you have achieved, and the things that you are still driving towards, what impact do you want to have? Lisa, what do you want your legacy to be?
A fighter, a survivor. If I gone through something like this and pull through and actually still able to pursue her dream job, pursue the outdoor life that she wants. I think anybody can. You just need the right people in your life, the right hand guiding you, helping you, the right steps. And that no matter all the adversity that I've gone through, that I still came out to be a happy person and still regret nothing.
Would you say that that's the most profound thing that you've learned about yourself along this journey, or is there something else?
At the moment, yes, I feel that, because it was very hard to achieve. It felt like it's very hard to achieve happiness, because you go through so much ebbs and flows, roller coaster rides, like, and there's a lot of times you feel like, oh, I'm not going to make it out of that tunnel. Why not just stop here? But I didn't. Kept fighting through and got to where I am now, being happy and doing stuff I love and being able to give back and talk about my story, and just hoping that I one day I can be an advocate for those that are struggling with domestic violence or even, military trauma, whatever way I can, even if I just sit there next to them.
You talk about achieving happiness, and in my own experience, there's also a fear about accepting happiness once you get to that point of achieving it. What words of wisdom would you offer to those who are hibernating right now or feeling lost or feeling alone?
It's okay to feel alone and lost because a lot of us has been there before, but just know that there are people that are out there that have very similar story and that is more than willing to help you and be there for you and just guide you. It could take several different people to guide you to where you need to be, but there's just really good people out there that's trying to help you. The first step is that you have to want to get that help and heal or start that journey.
Well, thank you, Lisa, for sharing your incredible story of hope and healing. I always say words matter, and your testimony to navigating through the hardest parts of transition will certainly resonate with many. I know that they for sure resonated with me. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. We only have a few more episodes left in the season, and I am continually grateful for your listenership and your support. So be sure to share this episode of the Two Gals and a Mic podcast with someone you know, and then tune in again for another amazing woman who is doing extraordinary things. I'll see you next time.